There is a question you can ask yourself right now, and the honesty of your answer will tell you almost everything about the state of your inner life. The question is this: how many things over the last 24 hours were allowed to disturb you? A message that arrived in a tone you did not expect, a driver who cut in front of you in traffic, a small remark from someone you barely know, a thought that arrived uninvited in the middle of an otherwise quiet morning, a scroll through your phone that left you, for reasons you could not quite name, a little smaller than you were before you began. If you're like most people, the list is long, and the moment you start counting, you realize something uncomfortable. You are not in control of how you feel today. The world is. There is a name for this condition, although almost no one uses it. The Stoics, 2,000 years ago, called it the untrained mind. Not stress, not anxiety, not anger. Those are symptoms. The condition itself is more fundamental. A mind that has never been taught the discipline of choosing what it allows in, what it lets pass, and what it permits to remain. And in a world like this, where notifications interrupt every 5 minutes, where strangers can reach into your nervous system through a screen, where any small event can ricochet through your emotions for hours, the cost of an untrained mind is no longer small. It is everything. The strongest people you have ever met are not the ones with no provocation. They are the ones whose minds have been trained. Storms still hit them, insults still land, disappointments still arrive, but somehow none of it sticks. They do not become the storm. They do not become the insult. They do not become the disappointment. They remain themselves through all of it. Calm under pressure, clear in conflict, steady when everything around them is unsteady. And here is the secret most people miss when they look at such people. It is not personality. It is not luck. It is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of a discipline that almost no one in modern life is taught. What follows is 7 Stoic lessons for the person who is ready to take back control of their own mind. 7 shifts in how you relate to your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own reactions. 7 angles on the one underlying question: how does a human being become the kind of person nothing in the world can shake? The 7th is the one that pulls the other 6 together. It is the deepest, the most counterintuitive, and the one most people are not ready for until they have understood the first 6. Stay for it. Welcome to Logostoic. What you are about to hear is not motivation, and it is not advice for becoming louder, more dominant, or more impressive to other people. It is something quieter and more valuable. It is the craft of mental strength as the Stoics understood it, not the absence of pressure, but the presence of an inner stillness that pressure cannot reach. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and the philosophers who walked beside them spent their lives studying one question above all others: how does a person remain themselves through everything that life will try to do to them? These 7 lessons are their answer, distilled and made practical. If you are tired of being moved around by every small thing the world throws at you, this video is for you. Like the video, subscribe to Logostoic, and stay for all 7 lessons. They build on each other, and the 7th is the key. Comment now: I take back control. Let us begin. Lesson 1. Detach who you are from what happens to you. The first and quietest source of suffering in a human life is a confusion of language so subtle that almost no one notices they are committing it. You fail at something, and instead of saying the attempt failed, you say I failed. Someone does not respond to your message, and instead of saying they did not respond, you say I am being ignored. A project goes wrong, and instead of saying the project went wrong, you say I am a failure. The shift is small. It is one word. It is the word I, placed where no I belongs. And that single misplaced word is the foundation of nearly every avoidable form of inner pain. What you have done, in that small substitution, is fuse who you are with what happened to you. The event becomes identity. The temporary becomes permanent. The external becomes internal. And once the fusion has occurred, you are no longer a person who experienced an event. You are the event itself. The failure walks around inside you. The rejection becomes the texture of your day. The disappointment colors how you see your own face in the mirror tomorrow morning. And none of this is necessary. None of it is even accurate. The event was an event. You were a person before the event, during the event, and after the event. The fusion is a habit of language that your nervous system has been performing for so long that you no longer notice the moment it occurs. Epictetus, who knew this subject as well as any philosopher who has ever lived, said something both simple and difficult about it. Men are disturbed, he observed, not by things, but by the views they take of them. Read that twice. The thing did not disturb you. Your interpretation of the thing disturbed you. And your interpretation, unlike the thing, is fully within your control. Imagine a mirror standing in the middle of a forest. A lion walks by. The mirror reflects the lion, but it does not become the lion. A storm comes through, and the mirror reflects the storm, but it does not become the storm. A broken tree falls, and the mirror reflects the falling tree, but the mirror itself remains unchanged after every reflection has passed. That is what a trained mind looks like. It receives reality. It registers reality. It does not become reality. Most people are not mirrors. Most people are muddy water. Anything that touches them stirs them. Anything that lands on them clouds them. They lose clarity in seconds, and they take hours, sometimes days, to recover it. And the entire time, they believe the situation is responsible for their state, when in truth, the situation simply walked past, and they leapt into it, and they fused with it, and now they cannot find their way out of an event that was, in the world outside their head, already over. There is a practical instrument here. The next time something happens that disturbs you, pause and run it through 2 sentences. The first sentence describes what actually happened, in the simplest possible terms with no interpretation. The thing happened. The second sentence describes what you are telling yourself about it. Now you can see them as 2 separate things. The first is reality. The second is interpretation. The first is given. The second is chosen. And the moment you can see the seam between them, you regain the power to choose differently. Marcus Aurelius practiced this every day. He would take an event that seemed terrible and strip it down to its raw form. This is not a tragedy, he would say. This is just an event, nothing more. When you stop fusing yourself with what happens to you, something quiet but enormous shifts. You become harder to break, not because nothing is breaking around you, but because you have stopped identifying with the breaks. You become harder to insult, not because nothing insulting is being said, but because you have stopped collecting every passing comment into the suitcase of who you are. You become harder to disappoint, not because nothing is failing, but because you have stopped treating every failure as a verdict on your soul. The mirror has returned, the water has cleared, the lion walked by, but you did not become the lion. And in that small recovery, your life starts to feel like yours again. You have been carrying events around inside you as if they were pieces of who you are. They are not. They are weather that passed through. Drop them. Drop what was never yours. You are not what happened. You are the one who remains. Type below. Do it now. I am not what happened. Lesson 2. Protect your energy like it is currency. There is a strange phenomenon in modern life that almost no one has a name for. You wake up rested. You feel okay. You do not have any unusually difficult task ahead of you. And yet by 3 in the afternoon, you are exhausted. Not from labor, not from a single dramatic event, from something more diffuse, something harder to point at, something that drained you over the course of the day in increments so small that no single increment registered as significant. By the time you notice the depletion, you cannot trace it back to a cause, because the cause was not a single thing. The cause was 1,000 small things, each of which seemed not worth resisting at the moment it occurred. This is the central truth that the Stoics understood and that modern life has almost completely forgotten. Your energy is not stolen by big crises. Your energy is leaked slowly, all day long, through small, unguarded openings. A conversation you did not need to have, a scroll you did not need to take, an argument you did not need to enter, a complaint you did not need to engage with, a piece of news you did not need to absorb. Each of these alone costs you almost nothing. Stacked one on top of another, 50 or 100 times a day, every day, for years, they amount to a quiet hemorrhage of the only currency that actually buys you the kind of life you want. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal a line that captures this with unusual precision. The soul, he said, becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. You become what you give your attention to. If you give your attention to chaos, you become chaotic. If you give your attention to negativity, you become negative. If you give your attention to the small, pointless grievances of strangers on the internet, you slowly become the kind of person whose mind is composed primarily of those grievances. The mind has no firewall. Whatever you spend hours of your day looking at, listening to, arguing with, scrolling through, that in time becomes the texture of who you are. Imagine a clean river running through a forest. Clear, cold, alive. Now imagine every day a small amount of toxic waste is dripped into it. Not enough to notice. The river still looks fine the next morning. A few drops disappear into the current and are forgotten. But the river is not a closed system, and it does not forget. The drops accumulate. Slowly the water becomes less clear. The fish begin to die. The plants on the bank wither, and by the time anyone notices the river is sick, the river has been sick for a long time. That is your attention. That is your mind. The small daily exposures that seem insignificant in the moment are doing exactly what they look like they are doing. They are coloring you. The Stoic discipline here is not asceticism. It is not withdrawal from life. It is something more refined, a selective severity about what you allow to enter the field of your attention. Before engaging with anything that does not strictly require your engagement, ask yourself one question. Is this worth my attention? Not is this interesting? Not is this convenient? Not is this socially expected? Is this worth my attention? Because your attention is not infinite, and what you spend it on shapes what you become. A tree planted in toxic soil does not grow strong, no matter how good the tree is at being a tree. Its roots are where it lives, and if the roots are surrounded by poison, the tree weakens, slowly, no matter what is happening above the ground. Most of the things that consume the attention of most people are not worth their attention. The notifications, the arguments, the comparison spirals, the reflexive engagement with whatever appears in front of them, none of it was chosen. All of it was reactive. And reactive attention is leaked attention. Once you begin to guard the gate, once you begin to ask before each engagement whether the engagement is worth the cost, you start to feel something you had forgotten you could feel. You feel, by evening, not depleted, but still possessed of yourself. Your energy comes back, your clarity returns, and you realize that what you had been calling tiredness was all along a slow leak from 1,000 small holes you had never noticed you were maintaining. You have been leaking attention all day, every day for years and calling the result exhaustion. It is not exhaustion. It is depletion through 1,000 small openings. Close them. Shut the leaks. Your attention is not free. Your energy is not infinite. Stop giving what was never meant to be given. Type below, do it now. My attention has a price. Lesson 3, kill expectations before they kill your peace. There is a question worth sitting with, because the honest answer reveals something almost no one wants to look at directly. Why exactly do you get frustrated? Why do you feel disappointed, angry, irritated, betrayed? You will say, if you are not careful, that the cause is the situation, the traffic, the partner, the weather, the world. But that is not the cause, that is the trigger. The cause is something quieter, something you have been carrying around inside you for so long that you do not even notice you are carrying it. The cause is expectation. And the gap between what you expected and what actually happened is where every single one of those painful feelings is born. This is the part almost no one is willing to admit. Suffering, in most ordinary cases, is not produced by reality. Suffering is produced by the mismatch between reality and the silent demand you were making of reality. You expected the traffic to flow, it did not. The pain is in the gap. You expected the colleague to behave fairly, they did not. The pain is in the gap. You expected your effort to be appreciated, it was not. The pain is in the gap, and the gap was created by you. Not by the traffic, not by the colleague, not by the world. By the unsigned, unspoken contract you wrote in your own head and then assumed the world had agreed to. Epictetus said something about this that, if you take it seriously, can dissolve a remarkable amount of unnecessary pain. Do not seek, he advised, for things to happen as you wish. Wish for things to happen as they do happen, and you will go on well. That is not passivity. That is not surrender. It is the recognition that you cannot rewrite reality, but you can rewrite the contract you have been carrying around about reality. Imagine a river flowing through a forest. The river encounters rocks. It does not expect a straight path. It does not stop, fold its arms, and demand that the rocks move. It does not get angry. It does not write a complaint. It flows around the rocks, over the rocks, between the rocks, beneath the rocks. And in doing so, it continues to be a river. Now imagine a human being walking through a life that has rocks in it. Most human beings expect a straight path. They have signed an internal contract with the universe, demanding that things proceed according to their preferences. And every time the universe declines to honor the contract, which is often because the universe never agreed to it in the first place, the human breaks. They get angry, they complain, they feel betrayed, they stop walking, sometimes for days, sometimes for years, because the path was not straight. Meanwhile, the river continues. Not because the river is more virtuous than the human, because the river was never carrying a contract. Marcus Aurelius understood this so deeply that he built it into his daily practice. Every morning, before he opened the door to the day, he reminded himself what the day would contain. Today, he would tell himself, I will encounter ungrateful people. Today, I will encounter arrogant people. Today, I will encounter people who lie, who cheat, who push, who complain. This was not pessimism. This was the opposite of pessimism. This was preparation. Because when difficulty arrived, and difficulty arrived every day, even for an emperor, Marcus did not experience the gap. He had pre-closed it. The world handed him a rock, and the rock was already accounted for. He flowed around it like a river that had been told, the night before, that the rocks would be there. You can practice the same discipline, not by becoming cynical, not by lowering your hopes, by simply giving up the unsigned contract. Tell yourself, before each new day, before each new conversation, before each new project, things might not go the way I want. People might disappoint me, the plan might fail, the traffic might be slow. This is not negativity, this is mental armor. Because the moment you stop demanding that reality conform to a script you wrote alone in your head, you stop being shocked by reality. And the moment you stop being shocked, you stop being shaken. The river around the rocks did not need to be heroic to keep flowing. It simply did not expect the rocks not to be there. You have been writing silent contracts with the world and breaking yourself every time the world does not sign them. Stop writing them. Release what was never promised to you. The world made no agreement with your expectations. Flow with what is. Type below, do it now. I release my demands on reality. Lesson 4. Turn pain into raw material. There is a misconception about Stoic philosophy that has spread so widely it has almost replaced the original. The misconception is that Stoics do not feel, that they suppress emotion, that they are cold, detached, hollow figures who walk through life unmoved because they have killed the part of themselves that would otherwise be moving. This is not what the Stoics taught. This is not what the Stoics practiced. And if you accept the misconception, you will miss one of the most powerful insights any philosopher has ever offered about what to do with the difficult feelings that arrive unbidden in the course of being a human being. The Stoics did not teach you not to feel. They taught you what to do with what you feel. They understood that anger, fear, grief, frustration, jealousy, hurt, these are not problems. They are energy, raw, undirected, sometimes overwhelming energy. The problem is not that the energy exists. The problem is that most people do one of two things with it, and both are wasteful. They either suppress it, which sends the energy underground where it festers and eventually emerges in distorted forms, or they react instantly, which discharges the energy outward in ways they almost always come to regret. The third path, the path the Stoics walked, is neither suppression nor reaction. It is redirection. Think about a volcano. Deep beneath the surface of a volcano is heat and pressure of almost unimaginable force. If that force erupts violently, it destroys everything it touches. Towns vanish, forests burn, the land becomes uninhabitable for a generation. Now consider what happens over a longer timeline. The same volcanic energy, expressed not as catastrophic eruption but as slow, accumulated outflow, produces the most fertile soil on Earth. The volcanoes of Indonesia, of Italy, of Hawaii, they are not feared as wastelands, they are sought as gardens. The The same force that can destroy a city is the same force that, channeled differently, can feed a civilization. The energy did not change. The direction of its expression did. Your anger is the same. Your frustration is the same. Your pain is the same. None of these is in itself a problem to be eliminated. Each of them is fuel. The question is not whether you should feel them. You will feel them. You are a human being. The question is what you will do with the heat they generate. Marcus Aurelius wrote, in a line that has become one of the most quoted in all of Stoic literature, that the obstacle is the way. He did not mean that obstacles are pleasant. He meant that the very thing that is in your way is the same thing that, properly engaged, becomes the path forward. The pressure deep inside the earth that, uncontrolled, would shatter the rock, that same pressure given time and direction is what creates the diamond. The practical translation is straightforward, although the practice of it takes a lifetime. When you feel anger, do not suppress it and do not discharge it. Sit with it for the few minutes it takes for the first wave to pass, and then ask yourself, what is this energy trying to do? Often it is trying to defend something, a boundary, a value, a person you love. The discharge would have damaged the thing you were trying to defend. The redirected version would have strengthened it. When you feel frustration, do not let it become resentment. Use it as a signal. The frustration is pointing at something, a gap between where you are and where you want to be. The signal is information. Act on the information. When you feel hurt, do not collapse into the hurt. Build something with the hurt. The greatest works of art, the deepest acts of service, the most meaningful careers, almost all of them were built on top of hurt that was channeled rather than buried. The mistake is to believe that your negative emotions are obstacles to your strength. They are not. They are the raw material of your strength. The person who has felt nothing has nothing to draw on. The person who has felt everything and has learned what to do with what they felt has access to a depth of force that no untouched life can match. The volcano is not the enemy of the garden. The volcano is what made the garden possible. You have been suppressing the very fuel that was meant to build you. The pain was not the problem. Wasting the pain was the problem. Use it. Channel it. Do not bury it. Anger is fuel. Frustration is a signal. Pain is raw material. Type below, do it now. I use the pain. Lesson 5, sit with yourself before sitting with anyone else. There is a small experiment you can run on yourself, and the result will tell you more about the state of your inner life than almost any other test. Try for 10 minutes to sit alone with no phone, no music, no podcast, no book, no screen, no conversation, no task. Just yourself, in a quiet room with whatever rises. Most people cannot do it. Not for 10 minutes, not for 5. The moment the silence settles, a small wave of discomfort begins. The hand reaches for the phone, the eye searches for a screen, the mind invents a task that suddenly seems urgent. The whole architecture of distraction reassembles itself around the simple act of being alone with what is inside you. Because what is inside you, when nothing else is competing for your attention, is something most people have never learned how to be with. This is not a problem of boredom. Boredom is a surface explanation, and it is wrong. The real reason silence is unbearable is that silence is the only condition in which the things you have been avoiding can finally surface. The thoughts you have been outrunning, the feelings you have been numbing, the questions you have been deflecting, the small unresolved corners of your own life that you do not look at when the screens are on. All of them are still there waiting, and the moment you stop running, they begin to speak. And because you have not built any practice for being with them, their voices feel intolerable, and you reach for whatever will silence them again. The phone is not a tool of entertainment. For most people, most of the time, the phone is a tool of avoidance. The Stoics understood that this avoidance was the silent root of an enormous amount of psychological weakness. A person who cannot be alone with their own mind is a person who cannot know their own mind, and a person who cannot know their own mind cannot govern it. Imagine a lake. When the surface of the lake is disturbed by wind, by ripples, by movement of any kind, you cannot see anything that is in the lake. The surface scatters the light, the depths are hidden. But when the surface becomes still, when the wind stops and the ripples settle, the lake becomes a mirror. You can see down to the bottom. You can see what is alive in the water. You can see what is broken on the floor. You can see finally the truth of what the lake actually contains. Your mind is the lake. The disturbance is the constant stimulation that modern life provides in unlimited quantities. As long as the surface is disturbed, the depths are invisible. You can spend an entire life in a disturbed lake and never see the bottom of yourself. And many people do. They reach their 50s, their 60s, their final years, and they discover that they never met themselves. They were always distracted from the meeting. The phone was always in hand. The next thing was always coming. And in the gap between distractions, when something tender or important tried to rise, they reached again for the next stimulation, and the gap closed, and the rising thing sank back down where they could not see it. Marcus Aurelius wrote daily, but he did not write for anyone else. He wrote to himself. His journal, which has survived 2,000 years and become one of the most important texts in philosophical history, was never intended for any other reader. It was the practice of an emperor who understood that the only way to remain steady in a chaotic world was to know, with precision and without flinching, what was actually inside his own mind. He sat with himself, every day, with pen and paper, in silence, before the demands of empire began, and because he sat with himself, he could face anyone else. The practice is simple to describe and difficult to begin. 10 minutes a day in deliberate stillness. No phone, no music, no agenda. Just sit, watch what rises. Do not fight what rises. Do not judge what rises. Do not act on what rises. Just watch, like the lake watching its own depths emerge as the surface settles. At first you will hate it. Your mind will protest, will invent emergencies, will offer you 1,000 reasons to abandon the practice. Stay. The discomfort is the work. The discomfort is also the door. On the other side of it, you begin to know yourself in a way that no amount of conversation, no amount of self-help reading, no amount of advice from anyone else can ever provide. And once you know yourself, you stop being afraid of yourself. And once you stop being afraid of yourself, you stop needing the distractions to escape yourself. The whole edifice begins to come down. And what is left when it is gone is a clarity that ordinary life almost never offers. You have been running from yourself for so long you have forgotten what stillness even feels like. Stop running. Sit with what rises. The quiet is not your enemy. What you avoid controls you. Type below. Do it now. I can sit with myself. Lesson 6. Zoom out. Most of what disturbs you will not matter. There is a question, again only one, that has the power to dissolve more anxiety than almost any other mental tool ever invented. The question is this: will this matter in a year? Will it matter in 5? Will it matter at the end of my life? Ask the question honestly, about the thing that is disturbing you right now, and watch what happens. In the vast majority of cases, the answer is no. It will not matter in a year. It will not matter in 5. It will not matter at the end. And the moment you can see that, really see it, not just intellectually agree with it, the thing that was disturbing you begins to shrink. Not because the thing changed, because your perspective on the thing did. Most of the suffering in most lives is produced not by the size of the problems, but by the closeness of the focus. When you are too close to something, it fills your entire field of vision, and it becomes, in that moment, the totality of your world. Hold an object 6 inches from your eyes and it will block everything else. Hold the same object at arm's length and it becomes one thing among many. The object did not change. Its size did not change. Its weight did not change. Your relationship to it changed. And that change of relationship is what perspective is. Imagine standing in the middle of a city at street level. The buildings tower above you. The noise is overwhelming. The traffic feels personal. Every horn that honks, every shoulder that bumps into yours, every interruption registers with the full force of immediacy. Now imagine the same city viewed from a hill outside it. The buildings shrink. The noise becomes a hum. The traffic becomes a slow flow of dots. The people are no longer individuals trying to push past you, but a pattern of movement you can observe from above. Nothing about the city changed. You changed altitude. And from altitude, what felt urgent and personal at street level reveals itself as ordinary and impersonal. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He called it the view from above, and it was a deliberate exercise of imagination. He would pause in the middle of an emotionally charged moment and rise in his mind above himself. From above, he could see his own life as one among countless lives. He could see his current trouble as one among countless troubles. He could see the day, the year, even the empire he ruled, as small things against the larger sweep of time and history. And from that altitude, what had seemed crushing 5 minutes earlier became suddenly manageable. Not because it was less real, because it was correctly sized. You can do the same. The next time something is disturbing you out of proportion to its actual significance, take a moment to lift yourself mentally away from it. Imagine yourself looking at this scene from above your own life. Imagine the same scene from a year in the future, when this difficulty has been resolved, when whatever is happening today has long since become a small detail in a much larger story. Imagine the scene from the perspective of your own death, looking back at what mattered and what did not. The exercise is not morbid, it is recalibrating. Almost everything that pulls us into hours of distress turns out, from any meaningful altitude, to be a small ripple on the surface of a much larger life. This is not denial. This is not ignoring problems. There are problems that matter. There are problems that deserve sustained attention. The Stoic view from above does not eliminate those. What it eliminates is the sea of small things, the disagreements, the slights, the embarrassments, the inconveniences, the irritations, that, day by day, drain the energy you should be giving to the things that genuinely matter. Your time, your attention, your emotional bandwidth, these are limited. If you spend them on every small thing that crosses your path, there will be nothing left for the things that deserve your full presence. The view from above is a filter. It separates what truly matters from what only feels, in the moment of immediate contact, like it matters. And once that filter is in place, you stop being controlled by the immediate. You start being directed by the important. You have been mistaking everything in front of you for something that matters. Most of it does not. Lift yourself above it. Zoom out now. Most of what is disturbing you will not matter in a year. Stop building your life around what will not last. Type below, do it now, I zoom out. Lesson 7, become the witness, not the reactor. There's one final shift, and it is the deepest. It is the shift that all 6 previous lessons have been quietly preparing you for. Without it, the others remain techniques, useful, intelligent, but ultimately incomplete. With it, they become aspects of a single underlying capacity. The shift is this: you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not your reactions. You are the one who observes them. And the moment you realize this, not intellectually, but actually in the felt sense of your own experience, the entire architecture of being controlled by your own mind begins to come apart. Most people, most of the time, are identified with what passes through them. A thought arrives and they become the thought. An emotion rises and they become the emotion. A reaction surges and they enact the reaction. The language they use confirms the identification. I am angry, I am sad, I am anxious, I am hurt. The grammar of the language traps the speaker inside the state becomes the speaker becomes the state. And as long as that fusion continues, there is no possibility of stepping outside what is happening internally to choose what to do about it. The mind is not yours anymore. The mind has you. There is an old observation, simple but precise. The harder you grip sand in your fist, the more of it slips through your fingers. Try to hold sand tightly and most of it escapes. Hold the same sand in an open palm and it remains. The mind works the same way. The harder you grip a thought, the more it grips you. The harder you fight an emotion, the more the emotion expands. The harder you try to control your reactions by clenching against them, the more reactive you become. Control through force is not control. Control through force is a different kind of being controlled. The Stoic alternative is not force. It is observation. It is the small but radical act of stepping back from what is arising and noticing it without becoming it. The thought arrives. Instead of saying I'm thinking this, say thinking is happening. The anger rises. Instead of saying I am angry, say anger is present. The shift is one word. The shift is enormous. Because the moment you can name a state as something that is happening rather than something that you are, you have created the smallest possible distance between yourself and the state. and in that distance you regain the power to choose. You are no longer the storm, you are the sky, watching the storm pass through, and the sky has never been damaged by any storm that has crossed it. This is the metaphor that holds all the others. The mirror in the forest reflects but does not become. The river around the rocks flows but does not fight. The volcano's heat builds rather than destroys when given direction. The lake in stillness reveals what disturbance hid. The view from above shrinks what closeness inflated. And underneath all of these is the same single principle. The clouds are not the sky. The storms are not the sky. The thoughts are not you. The emotions are not you. The reactions are not you. You are what remains when all of these have passed. And what remains has never been touched by any of them, no matter how loud they were while they were here. The practice is small and constant. Throughout the day, when something rises in you, notice it. Name it as an event rather than as an identity. Fear is present. Sadness is here. Frustration is moving through. Each naming creates the small distance that returns control to you. Each naming reminds you that you are the sky and the cloud is just a cloud. Over weeks, over months, the practice changes you. You stop being yanked around by every passing internal weather system. You stop reaching for the phone, the drink, the distraction, the next escape. You can be with what arrives, because what arrives is no longer who you are. It is something you are watching, from the still and unbroken place that has always been you. This is what the previous 6 lessons were quietly building toward. Detaching identity from event is a form of witnessing. Protecting your energy requires the witness to notice the leak. Killing expectations requires the witness to see the contract before it imposes itself. Turning pain into raw material requires the witness to step back from the pain long enough to redirect it. Sitting with yourself is the cultivation of the witness. Zooming out is the witness rising above the scene. And becoming the witness in full as a continuous practice is what makes all 6 previous practices stable rather than occasional. Without the witness, you are doing techniques. With the witness, you are living from a different place entirely. And from that place, almost nothing in the world has the power to shake you, because the part of you that could be shaken is no longer the part of you that is running the show. You have been the storm for so long you forgot you were the sky. The clouds are not you. The emotions are not you. The reactions are not you. Step back. Become the witness. You are not what passes through you. You are what remains after it is gone. Type below, do it now. I am the witness. 7 lessons. Detach who you are from what happens to you. Protect your energy like it is currency. Kill expectations before they kill your peace. Turn pain into raw material. Sit with yourself before sitting with anyone else. Zoom out, because most of what disturbs you will not matter. And become the witness, not the reactor. These are not 7 separate disciplines with 7 separate fixes. They are 7 angles on a single underlying recovery, the recovery of the position from which control becomes possible. You do not control the mind by gripping it harder. You control it by stepping back far enough to see it. The sand does not stay in the clenched fist. It stays in the open palm. The lake does not become clear by churning the water. It becomes clear by allowing the water to settle. The river does not get past the rocks by demanding they move. It flows around them and continues to be a river. Every Stoic image in this video has been pointing at the same truth, from a different angle. Strength is not force. Strength is the steadiness of what remains untouched when everything else moves. The mirror in the forest. The clean river that has not yet been polluted. The river that flows around its rocks. The volcano whose heat builds rather than destroys. The lake whose stillness reveals its own depths. The city as it looks from a hill outside it. The sky that the clouds cannot harm. These are not just metaphors. They are maps. The Stoics chose them deliberately because the patterns in nature are older than philosophy, and they were already teaching the same lessons long before any human being arrived to give them words. To become mentally unshakable is to become, in some quiet inner sense, like these natural things. Not because you have killed your feelings, but because you have learned to be the larger container in which the feelings happen. The sky is not against the clouds. The lake is not against the wind. They are simply larger than the disturbance, and so the disturbance passes through without damaging them. You will not arrive at this in a week. You will not arrive at it in a month. The Stoics did not promise that this would be quick. What they promised, and what the practice actually delivers over time to anyone willing to do it patiently, is that the work itself begins to do the work. The first time you notice your own anger rising and label it as anger is present, instead of becoming it, you have already crossed a small but irreversible line. The first time you ask, before engaging with something, whether it is worth your attention, you have already begun to redirect the leak. The first time you sit, alone and quiet, for 10 minutes, with whatever arises, you have already begun the patient labor of becoming a person whose own mind is no longer a foreign country to them. Take back control of your mind, one small practice at a time. The mountain does not become the mountain overnight. It does so by remaining a mountain through every weather that has ever crossed it. Take back control of your mind. Not because the world will stop trying to take it from you. It will not. Take it back because the work is yours, the mind is yours, and no one else in the world will do this work for you. That is the entirety of today's video. The work is to begin practicing today in whatever small moment first offers itself. If this video reached the part of you that has been quietly looking for this work for a long time, the part that has known something was off, that has felt the leaks, that has been waiting for permission to begin, consider liking it. There are people right now scrolling through their phones who are exactly where you have been, and they will only find this perspective if those who recognize themselves in it carry it forward. Every like puts this in front of one more of them. And leave a comment. Of these 7 lessons, write the one that hit hardest, the one that named a pattern you have been performing for so long that you stopped noticing it. Name it specifically. The Stoics believed that naming the pattern is the first real step out. The comments are full of people doing the same work in real time in their own lives. Add yours. Subscribe to Logostoic, because the work of becoming mentally unshakable is not the work of one video. It is the work of returning again and again to the disciplines that quietly transform you from someone who is moved by everything into someone who is moved only by what genuinely matters. That is what this channel is built for. If that is the kind of strength you actually want, you have found the right place. May you take back control of your own mind, gently and patiently, from everything in the world that has been borrowing it without your permission. May your peace, from now on, come from a steadiness no storm can disturb. And may the practice itself, repeated daily across the rest of your life, slowly reveal to you the unshakable mind you have been carrying inside you all along, the one that was only ever waiting for you to remember it was there.